Foreign Affairs has said that the conclusion reached by European Union foreign ministers about Egypt's political situation reflect either a lack of knowledge of what is happening on the ground or deliberate European disregard. And prominent leftist politician Hamdin Sabahi announced on Saturday that he would run for presidency in this year's elections. Sabahi, who finished third in 2012 presidential race behind eventual winner Mohamed Morsi and Hosni Mubarak Arab Premier Ahmed Shafiq, announced his candidacy at an event in Cairo. And also the Tamarrud movement, the rebellion, and Al-Tayyar al-Sha'bi Popular Current have announced their support for Field Marshal Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Hamdin Sabahi respectively as candidates for the presidency. Maybe we're speaking about this and more with Dr. Ahmed Mahanna. He's a political analyst. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
So part of our discussion will be definitely learning more about your framework that you kept for every aspect and for every industry in Egypt, to learn from you more about what you have done. But let's first start with the prime topic, which is the presidential race. So everybody is looking forward for the field marshal to decide whether he's going to be running for presidency or not, despite there are a lot of indications that he's going to be running for presidency. And yet there are this, conflicting messages from the candidates. Hamdin Sabahi first says he's not going to be running for presidency and nominate himself, and Abdel Menam al-Futuh the same thing, and then Abdel Menam al-Futuh moves behind, and Hamdin Sabahi puts his name on the table. How are you seeing this presidential race? Because there is a lot of arguments and controversial statements about how it looks today.
The way we could analyze this is by looking at the 2012 presidential race. We find that Morsi achieved 25% of or obtained 25% of the votes, Ahmed Shafiq 24%, Hamdin Sabahi 21%, and then followed by Abdel Menam al-Futuh by 18%. This basically means that no one president can enjoy the full majority of the Egyptians. And then part of that is also to do with the culture of how we choose our leaders. I would suggest for the next presidential election is to use what is known as the instant runoff system. The instant runoff system is, instead of allowing 20 or 12 people as it happened in 2012, basically start running a runoff survey to basically narrow down the number of people that can join the presidential race, or even shortlist them. And that's what happens in the United States. Basically, if you look at Obama and Mrs. Clinton, they run the survey first, or the instant runoff, and then Obama basically achieved the highest votes. In terms of who enters the presidential race, I don't think most of them actually are able to run the country at this stage. Despite the fact that I do not recommend or promote I'm sure he doesn't want the foreign media to say this about Egypt, so he knows that. Secondly, he knows well that Egypt needs him more as a defense minister, and I think this is part of the hesitation. Yes, the message is out, but I think in the last minute he's going to say no.
And in the event that he decides to go for presidency, who do you think would be filling the gap of the Ministry of Defense?
I think there will be a new person coming on board. There's still a lot of people thinking about it, a lot of people preparing to join the presidential race. But I don't think any of the people that really announced joining the presidential race will succeed, such as Hamdin Sabahi or Abdel Menam al-Futuh. Abdel Menam al-Futuh is really a confusing personality to most Egyptians. We're not able really to decide whether he's a part of the Muslim Brotherhood or not, and Hamdin Sabahi, sometimes he attacks the army and sometimes he really supports the army. Recently I watched a video where he really criticized everybody that describes what happened in June 30th as a military coup.
So this is the disappointment of people, because people are looking for candidates to pick from. The revolutionaries in general are against having a military figure in presidency. So this disappointment comes that even if it's a fair presidential election, it would be needing balance of characters, like you said, that are able to lead the country, like Field Marshal Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
Yeah.
So who would be coming to this place to compete? The second question is, is it true that we don't really have calibers, or is it a position or a post that people are fearing, who has the capability but they fear to move towards nominating themselves?
Let's look at how we look at the presidency. Presidency in any, or the president in any political system is not the important person really. The important person is the prime minister and the cabinet. I really didn't have a problem with the army ruling Egypt as in a figure of Mubarak or anybody else, because the most important thing is the prime minister and the cabinet. I think the fault of Mubarak is appointing military officials in most top rank positions, and that was the mistake of Mubarak. But we need to look at, because Bush was ex-military, so it's not really a problem to have a military person. The problem at the moment is that Egypt has witnessed 3 revolutions, January 25th and June 30th, and particularly in January 25th, people don't want the army to come back to the political scene. And for Sisi to go into the presidency race, it's going to really click the memory back for the Egyptians to say, well, here's the army coming back to the political scene. We want the army to be the backbone of Egypt and remain the protector of Egypt. Yes, on the other side, who do we have to really support and follow to come and become the president of Egypt, who is able and has the charisma and the characteristics, whether professional and human characteristics, to run the country? We don't have. And therefore, unfortunately, I would go behind Marshal Sisi in supporting him in terms of the right person that leads the country. But whether he's as a military person, do I like that? No, I don't. But unfortunately, he's the only one that we can see at the moment can run the country and take it to the safe side.
Yes. To look at the remarks, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has said that conclusion reached by European Union foreign ministers about Egypt's political situation reflect either a lack of knowledge of what's happening on the ground or deliberate European disregard. So how do you evaluate the remarks made by the EU about Egypt?
Okay, if you look at the declaration that came out of the EU 3 days ago, it basically had 2 or 3 points that support the revolution of June 30th, and the rest of it is all against the revolution, basically criticizing what happened, criticizing the army involvement in a political scene. But here I go back to what I said earlier, it's a lack of a good job done by the Foreign Affairs. The Foreign Affairs Ministry is responsible for 187 embassies, and they failed to really address the right issues and the right picture and image of the Egyptian situation here in Egypt in June 30th. And at the moment, we are allowing foreign media like Al Jazeera and CNN and BBC to attack us and attack the will of the Egyptians in June 30th. And here I find that the Foreign Affairs Ministry is responsible for that. On the other side, even if the Foreign Affairs Ministry has really done a good job, still the European community don't want to admit that it was a revolution. And I think that's not a message for us or a message for the citizens of Europe. It's a message to the army generals in Europe, because particularly Turkey is quite worried, and we can see now with the corruption that's taken place in Turkey, a lot of army officials are really involved in that. So I think it was a message to the generals that don't try that, because we're not going to support it. So yes, looking at, do we really have the right image overseas? No, we don't. Do we really have to worry about what the European community is saying? We don't really have to worry, and I think we have to really start having that independence in our opinion and our will to do whatever is necessary for Egypt, even if it comes to the nomination of Marshal Sisi to the presidency, whether they're going to say, you know, military coup or not. Yes, we should go with it. But I still think that we hope other people will come on board, will help Sisi to build institutions in the country and help build a new democratic Egypt without having to go back to the army.
It's good that you have these hopes, because, you know, time is really ticking. We only have almost 2 months to end this, you know, period, according to the declaration that was announced by the interim president Ali Mansour, which gives us a window of 1 month to have candidates nominate and to end the presidential elections. It's a very short period. And do you